Clarity?
Voters don't know what a Keir Starmer government will stand for. What is it you are getting wrong?
Misogyny?
On one hand, she's got all that stuff, she's a serious political commentator. Then if you look at her Instagram, it's all pictures of her bums and her boobs.
5'3". These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston. Welcome to The Interesting Times, a political comedy show that looks and laughs at UK politics. Sean Bailey was on GB News where he complained about divisive politics and proceeded to pick a fight with half the population.
Well, Carol Vorderman appears to have gone full Tonto again. This time she's waded into the debate about veterans' homelessness.
And look, on one hand, she's got all that stuff, she's a serious political commentator. Then if you look at her Instagram, it's all pictures of her bums and her boobs. So what is it? What is it here? She can't be both.
I went on Carol Vorderman's Instagram for, research, and now I have an erection. What's going on? I'm guessing Lord Bailey of Paddington is a little new to social media. So yes, your lordship, Instagram is where people post flattering pictures of themselves. Twitter can be divisive, and Facebook is for people you've met and never want to meet again. Also, Gumtree is for serial killers, Nextdoor is for racists, and Craigslist is really a list for people called Craig. Or indeed, you can call them anything if you pay them enough. The thing is, women are allowed to have political opinions irrespective of what they look like. Shouldn't really be something that needs to be said in 2023. It certainly shouldn't be controversial. And before you say it, nothing to do with her politics. I can quite happily say Michelle Mone looks hot here, but I don't agree with her politics. And someone else whose politics I don't agree with is Anne Widdecombe. If, say, she wanted to take a picture of herself in a thong, for instance. Yeah. Try getting that picture out your head anytime soon. And not only were women not allowed to talk about politics, they also shouldn't talk about football. Former footballer, an opinion nobody asked for, Joey Barton has been rather vocal on Twitter in relation to female football pundits giving their opinion on the national sport. At one stage comparing Eni Aloku and Lucy Ward to Fred and Rose West, the serial killers. It's certainly a mystery why they asked the opinion of a player with 12 years of international experience rather than someone with 12 minutes. Perhaps Joey should take note of his Twitter banner. So, what else has been happening? Well, on Thursday at the Bristol and Bath Science Park, Keir Starmer gave a New Year's speech, the last one before a general election, as he continued his clear strategy of getting into power by not being the Tories, although that might not be enough.
Your entire pitch seems to be vote Labour to see the back of the Tories.
Voters don't know what a Keir Starmer government will stand for. What is it you are getting wrong?
Last year, I set out in more detail than I think any opposition leader has ever set out before, the 5 driving missions of the next Labour government. Opportunities that children and young people need for the skills they need for their life and the work they're actually going to do.
But that is ambiguous. The opportunities, the skills that young people need for their life, for the work they're going to do. You're not Liam Neeson. You do need a bit more clarity than that. What are the skills? Where are the opportunities going to come from? And as for the others...
Safe streets, halving violence against women and girls. High sustained growth in the G7. Clean power by 2030. An NHS not just off its feet but fit for the future.
Don't get me wrong, these are all not just good, but great missions to have. And unlike him that shall not be voted for, they are all actually what the country needs. I think the problem is that it's unclear where the money's going to come from. The Sun's Harry Cole decided to add his name to the list of people giving not very good names for Keir Starmer to Keir Starmer. Following on from Boris Johnson's Captain Hindsight for a man that has foresight, and Greg Hand's flip-flop for someone who's a shoo-in to be our next Prime Minister. And let's not forget Penny Mordaunt's Beach Ken. Yes, it's Frank Hope, because he said this.
People have had their fill of that from politicians over the last 14 years. No, they need credible hope, a frank hope.
Get it? Well, I suppose that the reason Sir Keir Hindsight Flip-Flop Ken Frank Hope Starmer hasn't been too big on Teasdale is because we don't even know when the general election will be. It could still be over a year away, which means we're probably definitely going to get a Conservative budget in March and maybe a Conservative autumn statement in November, in which, let's be honest, the Tories are going to sell off whatever they can, rip the heart out of public services and grab hold of various departments by the ankles and shake them to see what's likely to drop out. Unless the Tories are living on another planet. Okay, change that. Unless the Tories have been living under a rock. Okay, I seem to be talking myself out of my own point here, which is that the Tories know it's pretty certain that they are going to lose the next general election. So it's come down to damage limitation, keeping enough of them to keep a party, which means between now and whenever they call it, they're going to be throwing money at the public like it's Brewster's Millions. And one of the big things that Starmer has made a point of is not making promises he can't keep, showing he's prepared to be honest with the public. Why does that sound odd? At the same time, the pint-sized minister was visiting a youth centre in Mansfield to talk to, I'm guessing, the young Conservatives.
Happy New Year, how are you doing?
Shite since you came to power. He then spun round a lot, presumably so that people at the back could see him, although people at the front would have struggled, and talked pointless crap. But like having your in-laws round for 14 years, there is only one real question people want to ask. When are you leaving?
It's a new year. Is it also going to be a general election year?
Yes. So look, my working assumption is we'll have a general election in the second half of this year.
Working assumption? Isn't the election date down to you? I wouldn't leave it too long though. People are already getting a bit fed up with him.
Resign! Resign! Leave now! Resign! Resign! Resign!
The junior doctors have gone on strike for a better wage, in line with inflation. Over the last 1.5 decades, they've seen a real drop in their wages of something like 26%. So, only fair that they push for an increase, especially when you see so many doctors leaving the profession and going abroad and making more money. But some others see it a bit differently.
Give us a pay rise that is completely excessive. I mean, 35%, get real. They're essentially saying, give us more money or we're going to kill people.
Yes, these junior doctors are essentially murderers. They only become doctors so that they can end people's lives. And they drug people, cut them open with a knife, or as they like to call it, a scalpel, and they call it an operation. Can we all just agree that doctors are the worst human beings in the world? Now, that might seem an exaggeration, but it's not too far from the government's own stance.
Can you just explain in detail why there is this principle, which a lot of people find odd, that you will not sit down with the junior doctors while they are striking? Say they're open to negotiations.
In a way that the consultants haven't.
Okay, but can you explain why she won't sit down with the junior doctors right now?
The last cohort is that of junior doctors, or doctors in training, as I prefer to call them, and they, sadly, to my great disappointment, they walked out of our negotiations and then called the strike.
Doctors in training sounds more like a Leslie Phillips film from the 60s. These people are actual doctors that have graduated and are working in hospitals. Some of them could have had a decade's worth of experience, which is about 9 years and 10 months longer than you've been a health secretary. If they're doctors in training, you're a government in nappies.
But, you know, £2 billion has been spent, but been lost by the NHS during a year of strikes. And if we'd given the doctors, the junior doctors, what they wanted, it would probably, net cost would have been just about half that.
Paying £2 billion to not fix something that would have cost £1 billion to fix, that's like voting Conservatives to keep out Labour. Do you remember when January used to be about freezing temperatures and snow? Well, the good news is we're not seeing that anymore. The bad news?
More than 250 flood warnings are in place across England and Wales after more heavy rain yesterday and overnight. Hundreds of people across the country have evacuated their homes, and the flooding has also brought misery for commuters, with road and rail travel significantly disrupted. Here, we can see a live map of all the flood warnings and alerts currently taking place across England.
Jesus Christ, that's the flooding? How are we not sunk yet? Storm Hank has hit the UK. Places are flooded in the Midlands and south east of England, with more to come. But don't worry, Rishi's on it.
I just want people to be reassured that the Environment Agency has got people on the ground in all the affected areas.
Well, not him, obviously. You don't tend to need waders when you're in a helicopter. And while the government talking shit is a problem for those of us around the country, regardless of the weather, the storm-hit towns in England have got a more immediate problem. Actual shit. Speaking of which...
It's old Uncle Andrew in the corner, like apparently anyone else's uncle in the corner at Christmas. But of course, he's not like anyone else's uncle, and it's a bit like the sort of turd that won't be flushed.
This is the news that some 950 pages of court documents brought about as a result of Virginia Guthrie's defamation case against Ghislaine Maxwell have included some fairly top-level names linked to the world's most notorious nonce. Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, Donald Trump, Stephen Hawking. Yes, young girls sexually abused by men, and only one person has been convicted. A woman. All right, two, but Epstein's dead. I mean, to be fair, quite rightly, but hey, crazy idea. Let's start arresting some men too, yeah? The news with reference to the post office scandal came front and centre with the release of the dramatisation on ITV of Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, which looks at what has been described as the biggest widespread miscarriage of justice in the UK. Between 1999 and 2015, over 700 operators or sub-postmasters and mistresses were prosecuted for theft, but on all these occasions, it was simply the failings of the new IT system called Horizon. Now, these people have had their convictions quashed, and a sort of apology came from the CEO of the Post Office Limited, Paula Yates. And it was shortly after this miscarriage of justice that she was given a CBE, which people are calling for her to lose. But Rishi Sunak isn't too keen, which kind of makes sense. If you strip one individual of their gong for being a crook, then you're going to have to do the same to all the other crooks. Then all you're going to have left are inspirational pop stars, wokey footballers, and television personalities with a conscience. Doesn't bear thinking about. Paula has, though, lost her directorships at retailer Dunelm and at supermarket chain Morrison's. But thankfully, she is fairly close to retirement age. And good luck to her getting her pension cash. There will be more on this on my deep dive segment on Wednesday, and there's a link to the rather excellent ITV drama series in the description below. So, Rishi Sunak, as we know, has approached his target for net zero with the same enthusiasm he's had with asking the general public who they'd like to run the country. And it's gotten a bit much for Chris Skidmore, the man who signed off the government's commitment to net zero. He has resigned as an MP as the government passes the Let the Earth Burn bill and reforms Richard Tice, or Dick as his friends call him. I'm joking, he hasn't got any friends. Richard didn't think much of this stance, but to be fair, Richard doesn't think much.
So he's holding an unnecessary by-election for the sake of a few months to satisfy his own hypocritical virtue signalling. He doesn't care about taxpayers' cash. He's quite happy to waste £250,000. I think he should be held responsible for that £250,000 for this seat that's going to be abolished in the general election.
Fair enough then. He can repay that £250,000 when you give back the £135,000 your Reform Party has received from various individuals with ties to the fossil fuel industry. Oh, and the £1.8 billion GB News, the company that Reform Party's honorary president Nigel Farage has a show on. Honestly, from Skidmore to Skidmark. And that's it. Thank you all so much for watching. Please feel free to like, share, comment and subscribe in that or indeed any other order. And I'll see you all soon. Take care.